Hello beautiful people, today is 7th of September. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. But before that guys, let's have today's GS folder. So today we'll take the concept of the human security which has been given by the Mehboob ul Haq, the economist who has also perfected the idea of the Human Development Index. He has said, in the last analysis, human security means a child who did not die, a disease that did not spread, an ethnic tension that did not explode, a dissident who was not silenced, a human spirit that was not crushed. So, guys, in today's developmental politics, we talk about the human security, national security, but we rarely talk about the human security. So, the human security is an element which will actually be bringing the qualitative developmental change for the humanity as a whole. So guys, if a question into the GS paper number 3 with respect to the growth and development comes, please do use the concept of the human security that needs to be the plank of all the developmental plans. And even in GS paper number 2, the governance cannot be completed without instilling the element of the human security. So guys, in GS 2 as well as 3, you can use such a concept. So friends, that's it. And now let's take the newspaper analysis.
Now first of all, let's take the overview of the entire newspaper first. Now guys, here you can see that the FCRA has been mentioned where license of certain NGOs have been cancelled. So guys, in this particular respect, with respect to GS2 as well as 3, we will see this entire issue. Then guys, here you can see that the Keshwaranda Bharti has passed away. So in that particular respect, this year Keshwaranda Bharti case will be important. So some important details we'll see here. Then guys, moving forward into the city and regional page, nothing important with respect to the UPSC has been given. So now here we reach to the editorial page. Now guys, this particular editorial talks about the India-China issue that is going on. However, in last few days we had traced this entire issue. So guys, just only that has been given. Then guys, this particular topic mentions that how the master of the roster system in judiciary needs to be redefined. Now, however guys, it is too much technical with respect to the internal judiciary's functioning, and such a thing is not that much required in our UPSC. Then guys, this particular article talks about the issue of the 3-language formula. So guys, we'll see this thing. This particular article talks about the economy and how the Make in India will not be successful with government's own interventions into the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Then guys, this particular article talks about the estimation of the death by COVID-19. Guys, such kind of data will not be important because it will change as the exam will approach. Then guys, this article talks about the economic recovery. So UN Escape has given certain recommendations. So in that particular thing, we'll see this thing. Then guys, here the Mopla revolt or Mopla rebellion has been mentioned. So in that particular respect, we'll see as it is about to complete 100 years. Then guys, moving forward, so here you can see that the High Court has given some direction with respect to the Assam Rifles. We'll see this thing. Then guys, the entire paper is nearly filled with the COVID etc. Please don't pay attention on such kind of things. Now guys, here a few days back we had seen that an oil tanker was caught into a fire near the coast of Sri Lanka. However, that fire has now been dozed off. Now guys, here we can see a report has been published where it has been said that the old thermal power plants which are more than 20 years old, they should be shut down because their upkeep takes a cost of nearly 53,000 crore rupees. So guys, here in this particular respect, the report from the Climate Research Horizon has been just mentioned. So just as a one-liner concept, you can utilize it. Then guys, moving forward, so into the Education Plus, we don't have important articles. Then guys, moving forward, as today is Monday, there will also be no business page. Then guys, here we can see that the Germany and Russia relations are deteriorating. So we'll see that what it has happened. So guys, finally we reach onto the sports page and there's nothing onto the sports page also. So that's it. And now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail.
Now friends, taking up the first news. So this particular news pertains to the FCRA clearance which has been withdrawn for certain of the NGOs. Now first of all, this particular news is important for our GS paper number 2 where the topic of NGO civil society has been written, as well as in GS paper number 3 issues of regulation of foreign funding. There this particular topic will also be important. Now guys, before going into this particular news, I will give you some background first. Now guys, this particular topic pertains to the regulation of the NGOs. Now, NGOs or the non-governmental organizations, these are such groups which are neither aligned to the government institutions nor completely aligned to the corporates which are oriented towards the profit generation. They lie in between. They are an autonomous organizations which are the grouping of like-minded citizens, and they work for a specific cause. Now, that specific cause could be environment, could be religion, could be any other social cultural issue, anything could be there. Now guys, these NGOs need money for their operations, and for that particular thing they raise money via the donations, via the subscription for the from the members, as well as they also start the various fundraiser campaigns. And as I have told you that these NGOs work for a specific cause, so they don't only work into their countries, rather they also spread their activities into the various other countries. Now guys, as we are talking about NGOs, in India also we have large number of domestic NGOs, and probably India is the country which have the largest number of NGOs into the world. According to a 2015 CBI affidavit which was laid into the Supreme Court, it was said that nearly 31 lakh NGOs are there which in India which are registered under the Societies Registration Act 1860. And guys, if we also account the unregistered NGOs, then these numbers will be huge. So there are such large NGOs. Now guys, this particular news pertains to the funding that the foreign NGOs are sending into the India. Now, as I have told you that the NGOs, they raise a lot of money, and if they want to sponsor some such kind of activities in some other country, they have to take the clearance from a nodal agency into that particular country. Now guys, in our country, such nodal agency is the Ministry of Home Affairs, and Ministry of Home Affairs had a particular legislation, that is the FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So if any NGO wants to fund any activity in India, they have to register themselves under the FCRA. Now guys, first of all, this particular legislation, though it is dealing with the money, but as this particular money will be utilized for internal activities, it comes into the domain of internal security. So therefore, RBI doesn't has the power in this regard. The power is given to the Ministry of Home Affairs. Please keep this thing into your mind. Now guys, as we are talking about the FCRA, such kind of legislation for the first time came in 1976, when it was said that into the interest of the nation, the organizations which are sending money in India, they needs to be regularized. However, this particular legislation was repealed, and in 2010 the new FCRA came. So this particular, right now we are being this particular method issue is being governed under the FCRA 2010. So here all the NGOs have to register. They have to give a kind of an undertaking that their money will not be utilized into the works which are detrimental to the national security, integrity, peace. All such kind of things are there under the FCRA. Now guys, what happens over the period of time, there is a huge controversy which is going on into the FCRA as well as NGO. What has happened? Repeatedly government had laid this claim that the foreign funding which is coming, it is being used for some anti-national kind of activities. For example, in 2015 the Ministry of Home Affairs suspended the licenses of more than 1000 NGOs. It was said that they can't receive the money from the foreign sources because they are using that particular money to disturb the developmental activities in India. Then guys, after that in 2019 the Intelligence Bureau presented a report, and they said that the NGOs are involved into the obstructionist activism, and due to them India's GDP is going down. So therefore over the period of time, various NGOs have been blocked under the FCRA and they can't receive the funding. Now if we see the present news, here again government has suspended the FCRA clearances for such organizations, NGOs, and 4 of them belong to the Christian groups. Now guys, a question is being raised that whether genuinely there were certain concerns or just out of a religious propaganda that thing is being done. So guys, that is a particular issue. Now as we are talking about the FCRA, first of all, there is a problem that whenever government uses FCRA, it is violating the article number 19. So under article number 19, if you remember, the right has been given to form the associations, and not only associations are to be formed, rather their efficient functioning also has to be given. Now when you are curtailing their funding, you are actually denying that particular type of right. Secondly, it has been said that under the Universal Declaration of Human Right 1948, article number 20, right to association has to be given, and India is a signatory of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. So by denying the funding, we are also violating this particular article. Moreover, guys, with respect to the India's FCRA, many a times the allegations have been levied. For example, the United Nations Special Rapporteur in 2016 said that the FCRA of India is very vague because the provisions such as disturbing the peace, harmony, these are very vague, and on large number of activities they could be levied. So guys, it has been said that whenever a person speaks against the government, the FCRA has been utilized. It is a kind of a draconian law. However, on to the other hand, government has also its own reason. It has a say that many a times terror financing etc. has been done by the conduit of such kind of agencies. So therefore, the government is also having their own reasons. However, guys, this is the entire issue with respect to the FCRA. So into the broader picture, you need to keep all these things into your mind because a question can come on this line. So guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article pertains to GS paper number 2. You all might have heard about the Keshwananda Bharati case of 1973. Now, the Keshwananda Bharati has passed away. So therefore, this particular year, this entire case becomes very important. Now guys, though in this particular session, we can't take up all the nitty-gritties and dimensions associated with the Keshwananda Bharati case because it was a huge case having the huge implication, but briefly, we will try to see all the implications, the background behind the Keshwananda Bharati case. Now guys, taking up from the very scratch, so you know that after independence, government started with the land reforms, and when such kind of things were going on, the Kerala passed the Kerala Land Reform Act of 1963. Now guys, by utilizing this particular act, the lands of the Edneer Mutt into the Kerala Kasargod district were acquired. So when their land was acquired, the chief, the head of the Mutt, or the His Holiness Keshwananda Bharati, he challenged such a decision. He said that under article number 25, right to practice propagate religion has been given. Under article number 14, right to equality has been given. Under article 19, 1 subclause F, right to property has been given. And under article number 31 also, the right to property has been guaranteed. So such decision is violative of the fundamental rights, and therefore it is not legally, it should not be legally done. Now guys, this particular matter was taken by the Supreme Court. Now, if before talking about the final judgment, in background, government had done a large number of things. For example, government passed the 29th Constitutional Amendment Act already. Now, what was this 29th Constitutional Amendment Act? It placed the Kerala Land Reform Act of 1963 into the 9th schedule. Okay guys, now what is this 9th schedule? So 9th schedule, you just assume that 9th schedule is just like a box. So whatsoever thing you will put into that box, it will be essentially immune to the judicial review. It was said that such a thing can violate the fundamental rights and it will be assumed as an exception. So even if this particular act is violating all these fundamental rights, it is immune to such kind of challenge because it has been placed under the 9th schedule by the virtue of the 29th Constitutional Amendment Act. So government has considerable ground. Moreover, government has into the meanwhile also passed the 24th and the 25th Constitutional Amendment Act. By such kind of acts, government got a huge power to amend any part of the constitution. So guys, government has their ground, but at the same hand, this kind of a trend was also becoming very much disturbing. So into this particular case, the Supreme Court under a 13 judge bench decided that not only this land reform matter will be seen, rather the power of the parliament as a whole to amend the constitution and such broader questions will also be dealt. And there it was said that parliament has the power to amend the constitution. Even if I tell you onto the ground, no relief was given to the Keshwananda Bharati. The land acquisition was also considered to be something legal, but certain broad implication came. First of all, the doctrine of the basic structure, where it was said that parliament by the virtue of the 25th Constitutional Amendment Act can't amend any part of the constitution. Their power is a little bit restricted. Where it is restricted? Subject to the basic structure. Now, basic structure earlier was also talked into the Sajjan Singh case by the dissenting judge. However, at that point of time, it was not taken into the full-fledged course. Then guys, the judicial review was also given a concretized form, and it was said that even if you are placing a legislation into the 9th schedule, judiciary still has the power that it can look into such kind of matters. Moreover guys, the separation of powers was also again reaffirmed. So, a large number of constitutional developments were made into this particular judgment. So guys, into your polity, please do have a look onto such kind of judgment, and please make a kind of a better understanding of this particular entire topic. Now, when I talk about the judicial review has been considered as the basic structure, and when we say that you cannot amend the basic structure, you cannot also take the power of the judicial review. Such thing was taken into the Keshwananda Bharati case. However, few years later, there was the I.R. Coelho judgment, and under the I.R. Coelho judgment, it was said that all the laws which has been placed into the 9th schedule, they are not immune to the judicial review. So guys, whenever you are talking about the Keshwananda Bharati case, it has a logical corollary into the I.R. Coelho case of 2007 also. So write one or two lines about that also. So guys, that's all about this particular issue, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, we are into the editorial section, and here I have clubbed two editorials. One editorial is about the mixed message, where the problems into the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan has been talked about, and other is that what should be the path for the economic recovery into the present times. Now guys, taking the issue holistically, see, right now the pandemic is there, and it has been said by the Prime Minister that pandemic provides an opportunity, and now we can lure the investor that they should come in India and should relocate to invest in India. This particular thing, it has been said, will serve two purposes. One, we will get the increased FDI. That particular FDI we can use for our developmental purpose. Secondly, it has also been said that it will create a kind of a statement for the China, because right now we are having a confrontation with the China, and bringing Chinese industries in India will also mark a statement. Guys, it has been said that it is good, but first of all, there is a problem in this particular thing. Industries might not come. Why? Because of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan that government has started. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, government is specifically directing to procure the Indian made goods. Even there are the ministries and departments of the government which had issued the clear circulars, and they have directed their officials that they need to procure only Indian made goods. Moreover guys, it has also been now completely decided that India will not be joining the RCEP, that is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is a kind of a free trade agreement between the 16 countries. 10 are the ASEAN members and 6 are the FTA partners of the ASEAN, which includes India also. Now it has been said that this doesn't send a good message. Corporates, they want a stable economic regime, and a country which is passing such kind of prohibitory directions, not joining the multilateral organizations, the companies will not be coming to India. Moreover, guys, such kind of self-reliance doesn't sounds good into the globalization. Okay, and the corporates, they if they are coming into the manufacturing sector, they need to propagate the notion of globalization. So therefore, your Atmanirbharta and globalization doesn't goes hand in hand. So guys, therefore there will be the problems. Now guys, it has been said that government needs to work in on bringing the policy stability as well as policy certainty in India. Your policies should not run contrary to each other. Now guys, if in past few days it has been said very vocally by the government that we have received a huge FDI. So on that particular thing also the clarification has to be made that the FDI which is coming, it is coming into the existing companies as well as into the service sector. But we want to develop our manufacturing sector. So on that particular thing you want to bring the coherent policies, number one. Further guys, the way forward, it has also been said into the article that right now the United Nations is running a global initiative, that is financing for development in the era of COVID-19 and beyond. So such document should be accepted by the India. Now guys, what are the broader challenges into the present landscape apart from the challenge of the problems into the manufacturing policy which is coming due to the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan? There are other challenges also. First challenge is that there is the diminished fiscal space. You don't have money to spend, and at the same time you can't even raise the enough of the debt because that particular thing will downgrade the credit rating of a nation. Then guys, it has been said that right now even development has to be carried, growth has to be carried, but growth should not be against the sustainability. So the sustainable growth has to be carried. The promises which we have taken into the Paris Climate Summit, those promises has also to be carried. So economic growth but into the sustainable manner. Third is that guys, right now there is a need that the regional cooperation should also be very much strong. Right now we should help each other to build each other's economies, because if everybody's economy will be good, then the cumulative benefits to everybody will come. So how these challenges can be solved? So guys, the UN Escape has given a strategy in this particular regard. Okay, so what is the strategy? First of all, it has been said that there should be the debt moratorium by the banks under the debt service suspension initiative. Now guys, debt service suspension initiative is propagated by the World Bank, where it has been said that right now the banks should be the major drivers of economic growth. They should not ask that the borrowers that immediately they should pay back their interest, they should pay back their installments. So kind of a relief needs to be given on that particular front. Second thing, it has been said that right now government also needs to work on to their tax reforms. The countries, they have a very kind of a lopsided tax base. Even if we talk about India, the number of direct taxpayers, they are abnormally low when we compare the number of the voters that are voting in India. So voter consciousness is there, but the tax paying consciousness is not there. Moreover, large number of exemptions is being paid by the given by the government. Such exemptions also need to be plugged. Then third is that government need to invest into the priority sector. Priority sector are those where the multiplier effect will be huge and the benefits onto the social and economic front will be more. For example, invest into the schools, invest into the infrastructure, invest into the manufacturing corridors, invest into the special economic zones. So such kind of high priority areas need to be invested. Most importantly, the health and education. Then sustainability bonds can be issued. Now guys, there are the corona bonds, there are the green climate bonds. These bonds are being issued for a specific cause, and the money being raised is being utilized very sustainably. So such kind of bonds should be utilized to raise the funding into the present times. Then guys, it has been said that a digital transformation also needed to be focused, because the pandemic had taught us that the online needs to be norm for the coming years. Then guys, MSMEs are needed to be given a special kind of support. First of all, because they sustain a huge part of our economy, domestic economy as well as exports are sustained by the MSCs. Secondly, large number of people depend for their employment into the MSMEs. Then guys, it has been said that a kind of a regional investment fund has to be made. So the SAARC nations or the ASEAN nations or the BIMSTEC nations, such kind of groupings need to make a kind of a regional investment fund, so that the help to the each other country could be given. So guys, these are certain of the strategies which are needed into the present times, along with the one specific strategy for the manufacturing sector. So guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article pertains to the language issues. It can be utilized in GS paper number 1, where the issue of regionalism has been mentioned, because into the regionalism, language often happens to be a main issue. It can also be utilized into the issues of the GS paper number 2, where the federal issues have been mentioned. Now guys, what this article talks about, this article says that right now government is being driven with an agenda, that is imposition of Hindi as a language onto the states which are non-Hindi speaking. There are certain incidences also which has happened into the past times. For example, just a few months back, the Haryana government made an amendment into their legislation where it has been provided that into the courts, the Hindi as an official language has to be used in all the courts and all the tribunals functioning into the Haryana. Moreover guys, just few days back, new education policy was unveiled, and in new education policy also the 3-language formula has been mentioned. Now 3-language formula happens to be a terminology which often comes with the issue that Hindi will be imposed onto the non-Hindi states. First of all, I'll give you some background about this 3-language formula. Now guys, the issue of 3-language formula, for the first time it came in 1968, when the education policy of 1968 came. There it was said that North India, South India. In North India, students have to learn 3 languages. One is English, one is Hindi, and one modern language, preferably from South India. Then for South India, it was said that there also students need to learn 3 languages. One is English, one is their regional language, and one is Hindi. Now, this particular thing is not appreciated by the non-Hindi speaking South Indian states. They say that this is an act of a cultural imposition onto them. Now guys, since then 3-language formula is a controversy, and till now 3-language formula has not been accepted into the South India completely. Now into the new education policy, again the 3-language formula has been mentioned. So again a kind of an uproar came against the implementation of Hindi. So guys, in that particular direction, this particular article is there. Now first of all, in South India, particularly Tamil Nadu, if we see, they are following the 2-language formula. In 2-language formula, they use Tamil as a medium of instruction for the education into the schools, and other is the English. There is no Hindi, no other kind of language. Now guys, it has been said that such kind of an approach is rational. Why? Because most of the developed countries into the world, they follow only 1-language formula, or most of the 2-language formula. Into the primary education, they say that the children should learn into their regional language or into their mother tongue. However, when they come to the middle classes, there they are given an option to learn the English language. Now guys, here I have used the word option. So it means that there is no compulsion, and because of such kind of liberty, it has been said that often the people over there, they are mostly proficient in 5 to 6 language. So such kind of an option needs to be given rather than imposing any kind of language. Further guys, here it has been said that the Singapore happens to be the model for India. It has been said that Singapore's chief architect, that is the Lee Kuan Yew, he had taken some very good steps which had actually made Singapore as a global hub of the present times. So if we see the demography there, nearly 74.2% people of the Singapore, they were proficient into the Chinese language. But going contrary to this particular thing, Lee Kuan Yew, he said that English will be the preferable language for the education, because he knew that such language will bring a kind of an economic economic edge. It will make a kind of an ecosystem where the global corporates can come and can easily establish their base. Secondly, it has been said that it will also give confidence to the multicultural groups which are living into the Singapore, and therefore it will be good for bringing the prosperity and a kind of a peace to the Singapore. So such kind of thing was done. Now guys, into the context of India, it has been said that Annadurai, though you don't need to use the name, so Annadurai, the chief political visionary of the South India, who held the vision for the Dravidian land, he also had such kind of vision, and because of his vision into the Tamil Nadu, two language policy is being used, where one is the Tamil and other is a language. So it has been said that because of such kind of language, a kind of an ecosystem has also been made into the Tamil Nadu, that even without having the fertile land, enough of capital, enough of the population size, a huge industrialization and development has came into the Tamil Nadu. So language, though it may not look that it is a very big factor, but it actually plays a very important role into over the years. So guys, it has been said that government should come make a kind of a reality check, and right now we don't need a kind of a nationalism. And when I am talking about the imposition of Hindi language, it has been provided that nowhere into the time 50%, more than 50% people are the Hindi speakers, less than 50% is the population, but still we are talking about the imposition of Hindi. And even if you remember, into the Singapore proportion is 74% people, still they haven't not imposed. So right now we should abandon the nationalistic kind of agenda and should look onto the real world possibilities of the English as a language. So English should be persuaded. Moreover, it has been said that if we see the present situation, then even into the two language, the students have not been proficient, the outcomes are low. How they will be adopting a fluency into the three language? So government should have some kind of practicalities and should promote the English as a language. So guys, all these arguments have been given here. So if a question comes, please do compare it with the Singapore's example. It will give much authenticity to your answer. So friends, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article talks about the Mopla rebellion and could be important for our GS paper number 1. First of all, few days back also the Mopla rebellion was again into the news. Why? Because it has completed the 100 years. It was the Mopla rebellion occurred in 1921, and in 2021 it will be completing the 100 years. Now guys, again it is in news. Why it is in news? Because it has been said that the people or the leaders involved into the Mopla, they were the righteous, okay, and they should not be given the status of the freedom fighters. So this particular thing has been said. Now guys, the Indian Council of the Historical Research had recommended that their name should be removed from the people who are considered the freedom fighters. So institutional backing has been given, therefore this thing becomes important. First of all guys, giving you some background about the Mopla rebellion. So in 2021, such an uprising began into the Malabar region around into the state of the Kerala. Now, the most important person associated here is the Warayam Kunat Ahmad Haji, or popularly called as the Haji. Now, Haji was born into an environment, or he was his upbringing was in such an environment where he heard the stories about the British atrocities and was always wanted to avenge the Britishers for the exploitation of people that they have committed. Now, guys, he took the leadership of the Khilafat movement in 1921 and he started a kind of a revolt against the Britishers. He started an armed struggle and he captured even the parts of the Malabar district into the Kerala, and he even formed a kind of an autonomous government of him for some period of time. He made Nilambur as the capital of his territory. He issued their own passports, their own currency, their own taxation system. However, guys, after a brief period of time, he was overthrown. Moreover, it was said that during this particular time, he was not only fighting with the Britishers, rather, they were also taking up a communal agenda against the Hindus. It has been said that because during that particular time, such kind of arrangement was there, money lenders were the Hindus and the peasants were the Muslim. So it was said that Hindus often involved into an act of exploitation. So therefore, to take that kind of revenge, they also targeted the Hindus. So it is a kind of an communal exercise, and because of such kind of communalization which was adopted during the Mopla, they should not be given the status of the freedom fighters. So guys, this particular issue has been raised. Moreover, guys, when we talk about the Mopla rebellion, the wagon tragedy often is also talked about. So what is this wagon tragedy? As they ruled for nearly 6 or more months into their kind of dominion that they had made, after that it was ended, the Mopla rebels, they were arrested by the Britishers and they were being transported to another place. And when they were being transported, they were confined to a goods wagon, and there they suffocated, and there 67 Mopla prisoners died. So that particular incident is called as the wagon tragedy. So that tragedy has also been listed as a kind of a tragic event into the national freedom struggle. So such event also needs to be removed from there. Such thing has been said. So guys, with respect to the Mopla, please pay attention on it, and into your history, please just be careful of this particular development. So guys, that's all about this particular issue, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article pertains to clarifying the administrative as well as operational control over the Assam Rifles. Now, such a topic is important for our GS paper number 3, issues of internal security, where the enforcement agencies has been mentioned. Now guys, before going into this actual news, first of all, some brief background. See, we often hear the term that is the paramilitary forces. First of all, how many paramilitary forces are there? Okay, now on to this particular thing, there is no very clear clarification. Why? Because there is no act in our country which actually defines that what are the paramilitary forces, what are their mandate, etc. Now guys, before 2011, the organizations such as the BSF, SSB, CRPF, Assam Rifles, CISF, ITBP, NSG, all these organizations were called as the paramilitary forces. But in 2011, a clarification was made by the Ministry of Home Affairs, and it was said that they are not the paramilitary forces, rather they are the Central Armed Police Forces. After that, many times in many of the reports, 3 paramilitary forces has been mentioned. So what are they? They are the Special Frontier Force, Coast Guards, and the Assam Rifles. Now guys, particularly the Assam Rifles, this organization is under the control of 2 organizations. One is the Ministry of Home Affairs and another is the Ministry of Defense. Because of such kind of thing, there is an overlap, there is an conflict, and a large number of operational problems are there into the Assam Rifles. So now the High Court has directed the center that they should clarify as urgent as possible that under whose actual control the Assam Rifles will be. Will it be under the control of the Ministry of Defense, or will it be under the Ministry of Home Affairs? Now, center is of an opinion that they will be under the control of the Ministry of Home Affairs, and thus they will also become the kind of a Central Armed Police Forces. Is it clear? However, guys, the personals who are serving into the Assam Rifles, they want that they should rather be they should be made an organization under the Ministry of Defense, because under the Ministry of Defense, the pay scales, the basically post retirement benefits are different and they are more preferable to the employees. So guys, this particular thing has been said. The Delhi High Court had said that that stand should be clarified as soon as possible. So guys, this is the entire controversy in this particular regard. So that's all, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article pertains to the Detroiting relations between the Germany and Russia, where Germany has threatened Russia with the sanctions. Now, why this entire thing is happening? So guys, just a few days back, an Russian opposition leader, that is the Alexei Navalny, he was poisoned when he was on a flight. It was said that into his poisoning, the role has been played by the Russian government because he was a very fierce critic of the Putin's policies and Putin's leadership. Moreover, he has also been an anti-corruption crusader and many a times he had targeted the government. Now, guys, when he was taken into the hospital, first of all, he was treated in Serbia, then he was transferred to the Germany, and in Germany it was revealed that actually he was poisoned by using a nerve agent, that is Novichok. Now, this particular nerve agent has been developed by the USSR during the time of the Cold War, and its accessibility is very much restricted, and most probably it is only restricted to the mainstream Russian army as well as to the Russian enforcement agencies. So how it actually it was used onto the Alexei Navalny, this particular thing pertains that there is some role of the government. Now guys, as we are talking about this nerve agent Novichok, first of all, this particular nerve agent was developed during the Cold War under the Operation Foliant. Now, Operation Foliant was such operation in USSR where such kind of lethal compounds were to be made. So guys, during this time USA was also making the such kind of lethal compounds, but USA's operation was not of secrecy. In the USSR, they were being made into the secretive manner. Now guys, such nerve agent Novichok, it has earlier also been used. For example, in 2018 on a former Russian agent it was used, and in the same year 2018 it was used onto two British nationals. So guys, it has been said that now again the Russia might having a hand in such kind of attack, and Germany has asked Russia that they should explain their version on this particular development. Now guys, when we talk about the nerve agents, these are such kind of compounds which can penetrate through your skin, and within very less kind of time they can show their lethal impact onto the body. They inhibit your nervous system. Now, as we are talking about the nerve agents, in 2017 also there was a report that VX, a separate nerve agent, was used onto the Kim Jong-nam, who was the half brother of Kim Jong-un, the dictator of the North Korea. So it has been said that he was also killed by a nerve agent. So guys, such nerve agents are very lethal compounds, and they have been used here. And particularly when we are talking about the nerve agent Novichok, it has been banned by the Organization for the Prohibition of the Chemical Weapons in 2019, yet it has been used. Now, particularly the Novichok, it has not been used in any of the warfare, but in such kind of activities it has been repeatedly used. Moreover guys, whenever we are talking about such kind of nerve agents, they have been utilized. For example, into the Iraq war they were utilized onto some scale. When into the Syria, the civil war was going on, into the Syria it has also been utilized by the ruling government. So guys, many times they have been into the news. So please prepare them for GS paper number 3 as well as GS paper number 2. So guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the question section.
Guys, please pause the video and try to answer the question. Question number 1 is with respect to the CSIR. Please consider the statement and identify the right option. Question number 2 is with respect to the Jal Jeevan Mission. Please read the statement and identify the incorrect code. Now guys, question number 3 is with respect to the Global Terrorism Index. Please read the statement and identify the right option. Now guys, question number 4 talks about the military exercises. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Now guys, today's main question, it is with respect to the GS paper number 1. Guys, question says, what do you understand by 3-language formula? Is it justified in order to enhance better learning outcomes? So please read it, please try to write it and provide some dimensions in this particular respect. So guys, that's it. I hope you are liking our discussion. Thank you so much.